Hello there, peoples, and welcome back to the Servants of the Dice Gods look at the 2019 Summer Points Update for X-Wing. I know by the time this has come out, the points update will be live, but hey, I had to get this out eventually, so Anthony here again, and today, as you can already tell by the title, we are going to be looking at all of the Imperial changes that came out of this update. Now, in full disclosure, I know Imperials way more than I know Rebels. I still know Rebels a pretty decent amount, but Imperials I think I definitely can comment more thoroughly on, just because I'm way more of an Imperial player than a Rebel player, so if I seem like I'm talking more on Imperial things, that's why. But without further ado, let's dive into these changes, starting off with all the upgrades that received changes on the Imperial end of things. So in terms of upgrades that were changed, there are only 5, with 3 of them only going down by 1 point. So we're going to start off with Admiral Sloan, who went down from 10 to 9. Now, I understand why they kept her relatively high, because handing out stress tokens is a pretty potent effect, and giving rerolls also a pretty potent effect, so having those two on the same card definitely needs to have a price to it. But I honestly think with the amount of stress functionality that Imperials have at the moment, with possibly an exception, nope, not Vader. I thought his ability gave out stress, my bad, but if this was a bit lower, I'd maybe make an argument for it, or maybe it is good where it is, and maybe run her on a TIE Reaper with a bunch of fighters or interceptors or something. So there's definitely potential for it right now with that 1 point drop, because honestly, that, like I've said before, that can make a huge difference between getting another ship in or not. But honestly, this is one I'm not too sure on. So moving over to one I think that actually might see some play now, Agent Callus. He went from 6 to 5, and I understand why he's at least in the mid-tier, because being able to modify a focus result without having a focus token or a calculate token or a force charge is a pretty potent effect. And actually, I am in favor of this change. That 1 point definitely opens up some room for a couple of things if you need extra piece on, like a defender or something, or you want to go up from like Rexler to what's her name, Ryad, for whatever reason. So there's definitely a good benefit out of the point drop, and I wouldn't be surprised if Callus maybe sees a couple of uses here and there, but overall, it's a good change. Will it be good in the future? Who knows? Next up, we have Sienna Ree, who went from 10 to 6, so a pretty significant drop there. And this one I really like, because her ability, I mean, it is powerful, but it's not, we're almost going to make her cost as much as Palpatine powerful. Like, because it's not going to be something you're going to be using every turn like Palpatine. It's definitely really situational, because it really heavily relies on what your opponent is trying to do, because you don't want to just give stress tokens out to your own ships all willy-nilly. But definitely her at 6 is a little better, but again, we're going to have to see if like high maneuverable ships start taking over the meta. Maybe you see a Reaper carrying her, just so that way you have the option to turn after a booster the barrel roll in order to make sure that you can keep enemy ships in arc and stay out of their arcs possibly. But for now, it's just nice seeing the points go down. That's really all I can say about this for now. Moving over to Krennic, he went down from 5 to 4, and same logic here with Callus, because opens up that extra point, which may not seem like much at first, but like I've said, can make a huge difference, especially with possibly needing support in order to get optimized prototype to kick off as often as you can. So, like the change there. And finally, we have Moff Jerjerrod, who is going down from 10 to 8, and this one I'm not too sure on. So he definitely should be high costed, just because it's one of these force multiplying effects that FFG keeps talking about. But considering that it only fires off every 2 turns, and it basically stresses all your ships if you choose to trigger the boost for each individual ship, Not too sure it's worth 8 points. Maybe if it was somewhere between 5 and 7, it'd be a bit better. But 8 and above, definitely not where it should be. But like I said with, I think it was the E-Wings and the Rebel Point analysis, I understand why they're taking this in little increments, so that way they don't accidentally lower something too low like they did with Leia and then just break the game. But I definitely think that Jerjerrod could use anywhere from a 1 to 3 point drop. Maybe not 3, maybe 6 is the right spot, maybe 7 is. You know what, I'll let you guys debate in the comments. Do you think Jerjerrod is good where he is, or do you think he needs to go down a little more? But if you do choose to argue about it down there, please keep it civil. So now we move on to the ships, and we're going to start off again with all the ships that didn't see any changes, and if there's anything particularly interesting that stands out, I'll go over that. So starting off, the Lambda did not see any changes. Understandable, it was right where it is. It saw some play, sometimes didn't see some play. Perfectly good where it is. TIE Reaper didn't see any changes. This one, I honestly think it could have used a couple points off of it because it wasn't really seeing any play. Maybe if it dropped a couple of points, and also if Imperials get like a cheap cannon carrier, it could be a fun jamming list. But for now, Reaper's probably still not going to see any play. Not a big fan of it. So moving on then, the Punisher didn't see any changes. Understandable, it was right where it is. I mean, Redline is still pretty decent. Death Rain maybe could have seen a drop just because he hasn't been floating around too much. Cutlass Squadron, right where it should be for a high level bomber generic. The standard TIE Fighter did not see any changes. Fair enough. It's a basic TIE Fighter. What are you going to do about it? The let's see, that definitely did see change. We'll go over that later. And finally, the TIE Striker did not see any changes. Same reason for the Fighter. It's kind of bare bones, not really much minus the unique pilot skill abilities and the adaptive ailerons. So understandable why all of those were kept where they are. So nothing really as hot take-ish as what I was talking about, the Outrider and the Rebel update, but at least with Imperials, I know what I'm talking about a bit more. Not by too much, but I understand things a lot more compared to Rebels. I still understand those, but Imperials, it's a lot easier for me to see things, so take that as you will. So now we start with all the ships that did see changes. So starting off with the Alpha Class Starwing, every pilot is staying the same except for Major Vinder, who went up by 2 points from 39 to 41. This change makes a lot of sense. He was really the only Starwing pilot that was consistently seeing play. Occasionally you'll see like a pair of new squadron pilots floating around, but they were not too frequent, so they were right at where they needed to be. Vinder was seeing a little too much play with a little too much support, so bringing him up to 41 definitely helps. And plus, his pilot ability is definitely way better than Lieutenant Karasabi's, which is after you gain a disarm token. If you're not stressed, you may remove a disarm token and you have to gain a stress token. So that, it's okay if you have stress removing effects, but I don't think Imperials have too many of those, and I don't think there's too many in the game right now. So Vinder, really the only one that needed to see a change, and I'm all in favor of this. So moving on from there, we come to the TIE Advanced V1, or the Inquisitor's TIE, or the TIE Advanced Prototype, call it what you will, and all of these are going down. And let me just say this. Hell, it's about time. These things were seeing no play whatsoever. I mean, at the beginning of 2nd edition, I was trying to mess around with the Grand Inquisitor because he was one of my favorite pilots in 1st edition, and he just was getting me nowhere. The fact that he only has 2 force charges leaves him vulnerable to being not being able to modify focus results if you need to. He can't really take hate, since I don't think hate generally gets thrown on 2 force charge ships unless I'm not seeing something in the research I've done. And needing to spend 1 to trigger the effect for every attack, definitely not a fun thing. If it was 1 force charge for the entire round, or you spend 1 force charge for either all attacks or all defense. Maybe he would have been reasonable at his cost, but considering the way that it was worded and how it works, not good at 56 points. So he's dropping by 4 to 52. Still a little too high in my opinion. Maybe anywhere between 48 and 50 would be a good range for him, but considering how fragile these things are with only 2 hull and 2 shields, but for now, we'll have to see where this goes. Again, FFG is doing this in slow increments so they don't accidentally break the game like they did with Leia. Seventh Sister is also going down by a bit, 46 to 43. She had been seeing no play whatsoever, along with all the TIE prototype pilots except for the Inquisitor, or the Grand Inquisitor. Her ability, I mean, it's okay, and actually hate on her might not be too bad, but considering, again, there's only 2 shields, 2 hull, you really don't want to be taking damage with this thing, so it's kind of a risk to put hate on it. Again, the ability is nice, but at 46 points, definitely not worth it, and I don't think we really have too much support to complement it. Maybe if maybe you use Juke or something, I don't know. Seventh Sister, I'm not too sure on. And then the generics, not much to say about them. They're generics. The Inquisitor has a force charge. Baron of the Empire is slightly, Baron of the Empire is slightly cheaper. Inquisitor's more expensive but has a force charge. Inquisitor went down from 38 to 35, and Baron of the Empire went down from 33 to 32. Now, Baron of the Empire, 32 points for something like this. Not a big fan of it. Maybe if it was 30 or 29, it would be a lot better. Unless TIE Strikers cost that much, which I actually think they do. Okay, the Striker is more expensive than the TIE V1, so yeah, definitely I'm not too sure about this one now. So again, here's another thing for you to debate in the comments. Are the generics well priced, or do you think they maybe need to go down a little further? So feel free to debate that, but once again, keep it civil. I don't need to be going to break up flame wars in the comments. Moving over to the TIE Advanced X1, all of the pilots are staying the same there, except for, big surprise, Vader's going up by 2 points. So I think if you had been paying attention to basically everything in the meta, at least for Imperials, Vader definitely was seeing a ridiculous amount of play, especially when paired with hate, and we'll get to that later. But him with hate was just ridiculous, and now with this points bump and hate going up, which I'll explain in a later video, definitely it's going to make it harder to give him a nice complementing core to make sure he's effective. Perhaps now you're going to have to drop from, if you're like using a shuttle as a coordinating machine, maybe you go to a TIE Reaper or something. I don't know, but Vader going up definitely is healthy for the game, and it might also allow pilots like Merrick to see play, because Merrick is actually a lot of fun. It's just he was overshadowed by Vader being Vader. And finally, for this cluster, I'm just doing this in short increments for my sake, so we've definitely got more to talk about here. So the final pilot we're going to talk about, or I'm going to talk about in this little segment here, is Soontir Fel. He went up from 52 to 53. Now, I briefly mentioned him going up in the Rebel Points analysis when I was talking about Wedge, and I don't like him only going up by 1.1 bit. Now, I know that might sound weird considering I'm a bit of an Imperial fanboy, but hear me out. I discussed this with Wedge in that generally the better pilot skills, or actually most pilot skills 6s, are in the mid-60s range for points, like Vader, Fen Rao, Anakin. So having Wedge and Soontir in that mid-50s just is really weird. They are definitely undercosted. Soontir, I understand him being a little cheaper due to the fact that his ability is a little harder to trigger, even though he's on an interceptor. But honestly, I would not mind if Soontir went up to 55 or 56. I honestly think that's the bare minimum where he needs to be in order to prevent himself from having a complementing core that makes it way too easy to fire off that ability turn after turn after turn. So Soontir only going up by 1 point, don't like it at all. So up next we have the TIE Aggressor, and I think this is a change that everybody saw coming. This thing was seeing absolutely zero play. Neither the generics nor the uniques were seeing anything. So here's how everything broke down for this. So Lieutenant Kestel's going down from 36 to 33, and I mean, the points decrease is nice, and it does open up some more options to give her support, but her skill is still just a little too hard to get off, and sometimes won't even work that well, so not too sure about this. Onyx Squadron Scout went down from 32 to 30. Same reasoning for Kestel, except you don't have to worry about the skill. So 30 points for a pilot skill 3 weapons carrier with a turret. That's not too bad. I mean, basically the Y-Wing is the exact same thing, so this I like. Double Edge is going down from 31 to 30, or he's going down from 33 to 31, excuse me, and he definitely should have a bit more of a price considering his skill, but considering he's only pilot skill 2, he's going to be easily knocked out before he gets a chance to fire off his ability, considering most ships in the game right now are running at either pilot skill 4 or pilot skill 6, so not too sure about that one. We'll see how things pan out. And then the Sinar Specialist, he is 28 points going down from 30, and I like this a lot. I'm making some comparisons to the Y-Wing here because this thing is basically a Y-Wing, except it has 2 missile slots instead of two torpedo slots. It has more agility. Actually, no, it doesn't. Yes, it does. More agility. It has 1 more, but then less shielding. So overall, I like the decreases to the the generics, I should say, for the aggressors. The uniques, I'm not too sure on at this point. Then we move over to the Defender, and I think this is one that a lot of people didn't see coming because all of them went down in points. Yeah, they went down. They were perfect where they are, and then they dropped. At least that's what I thought originally. I'll explain why I now have changed my opinion on this slightly. So, going over all the points decreases, Rexler went down from 82 to 81, Vessery from 86 to 84, excuse me, Ryad from 84 to 82, the Onyx Squadron Ace from 76 to 75, and the Delta Squadron Pilot from 70 to 69. So, again, at first, and this is an opinion that really applies to all of them since you kind of play all of them the same way. At first, I'm like, why would they lower the price of aggressors? That makes no sense. But then, I'm just going to say this now, Juke went up. And you all probably know this right now, but I kind of have to say it. So Juke went up by like a point or 2. In fact, let me look this up quickly. But Juke went up. So Juke went up, and if you've ever played a Defender, you know you always fly this thing with Juke. Always. Just so that way you can take massive advantage of that full throttle ability. And since that went up, and it's a commonly paired upgrade, Defenders went down. And something that FFG has been doing with both of the points updates at this point. So that's nice to see that it won't really cost you as much in order to be able to fly the Defender Juke combo. And I finally got this thing pulled up here. It went up by 2 points. So for Ryad and Vessery, it'll cost the same amount of points for Juke plus whichever one of those 2 pilots. For all the others, it'll cost you 1 extra, which could be a big difference, but in the lists that I use Defenders in, I really haven't noticed that much of a change. So overall, I like the change, and actually it's not even a change, it's just redistributing the points. But I like the fact that it's happening because, honestly, Juke needed to be increased for other things. Like, for instance, the TIE Phantom, which is going up in points. So, again, which definitely needed to happen. Quad Phantom lists were still running around. Whisper, in particular, was also becoming a bit of a nuisance. So, these guys going up, as well as Juke going up, you're not going to be able to fit 4 Phantoms with Juke in a list. Whisper with Juke is going to be an even more expensive piece, and you may not be able to get all the support in with that, with Whisper as you used to. Echo going up, not too sure why he went up, probably just to prevent him from being abused instead of Whisper. And a Sigma Squadron Ace, that was the real problem with the quad Phantoms. And then the Imnar test pilot probably also went up as a fail-safe mechanism, albeit this only went up by 1 point from 43 to 44, whereas the Sigma Squadron Ace went up from 46 to 48. Echo also went up by only 1 point from 50 to 51, so same reason as the Imdar pilot. And then Whisper went up the largest from 54 to 57. So Phantom seeing increases again makes perfect sense. Moving forward, we have the TIE Bomber next, and the only thing that saw change was the Scimitar Squadron pilot going down from 30 to 29. But in practice, it's actually not really a change because its most commonly paired upgrade, Barrage Rockets, is going up by a point as well from 7 to 8. So seeing the pilot go down but the commonly paired upgrade going up is something we've definitely been seeing a lot of in this update. Separatists had a couple of things happen to it, them like that. Juke and Defenders had that happen to them. So FFG, what they're really trying to do is to open up other options for these ships that are commonly taking a different upgrade, so that way it isn't just an automatic take. And also on other ships, those popular upgrades are going to be a bit more of a bit more pricey and more risky to take because they're worth so much, and if that ship gets destroyed, you're losing a significant investment. So it's really coming down to trying to make sure that a lot of different upgrades see play while also making sure that the pilots aren't hurt by it. And rounding out the Imperials, we have the Decimator, which all 3 pilots are going down. Shirano is going from 80 to 76, Oiken from 78 to 74, and the Patrol Leader from 72 to 68. Now, is this going to become a replacement for the Lambda or the Reaper? Absolutely not. Could it serve as the centerpiece of a list with maybe a Defender or a small TIE Swarm? Possibly. Now, is it too expensive? In my opinion, or is it too expensive still? In my opinion, possibly. Now, I can't really go one way or the other, because on the one hand, the fact that several Imperial crew went down with force multiplying effects and the Decimator went down, you got a pretty significant drop in points there, which opens up room for more stuff on other ships or possibly even another ship. But on the other hand, you're still dumping potentially 80 plus points into a ship, which with a fast-moving attacker like a Defender, that's one thing. But on a slow-moving ship with 0 agility, and it's going to take damage really easily because of that, you don't want to put as many points into it. Now, if this was Epic, I'd say, whatever, it's Epic. You're fielding a whole multiple squadrons anyways. But for standard play and hyperspace and extended, not too sure if this is going to help it. Honestly, the points decreases for the crew are probably going to help the Lambda and the Reaper more than anything. The Decimator still probably will stay as a rarely seen heavy gunboat / utility piece, unless you're running Oiken with Intimidation or something like that. In that rare case, it might see a bit of play, but I'm not one to say anything on that because I honestly don't fly Decimators ever anymore because of various reasons, and them being too expensive is still one of them. And with that, that is all the Imperial changes from this update. Again, I think I talked a lot more on this compared to Rebels. I will double check the runtime to see if that's actually the case, but this time I'm definitely way more confident in my opinions here. With Rebels, I was mostly confident, but a little shaky because, again, I'm not too familiar with the faction. I still am somewhat familiar, but not as much as Imperials, and by the same token, Scum, that's likely going to be the next one that's coming out, so stay tuned for that, even though you're probably already fatigued from all the opinions on this, but hey, I wanted to throw a semi-casual one out into the ring, so hopefully you enjoyed, and once again, stay tuned for the Scum analysis. Peace out.